So you want to add more materials to an object so it shows a different material on each side of your object, or maybe some variation of that. Not a problem. I'll show you how to do that today in just a couple of minutes. Now we are going to need an additional piece of software. We are going to use Blender, but you can use any 3D modeling software. Blender is free and probably the most commonly used, so that's what we'll be demonstrating how to do it in today. The first thing we need to do is to pull out our shape. We're going to be using a cube for our example, and you are going to want to zero out the location before we get started on this. So it'll put it over here if you're in the default third-person template project. And from here, you can just kind of go ahead and hit browse to asset, and then you can do asset actions, export, figure out where you want to export it to. This is fine, and it's going to export it as an FBX. We're going to change the name so we don't have any issues when we re-import it, and we're going to call it a multi-faced cube. And we can just leave it as default here. That's all fine. So now that we have it exported, we need to go ahead and go into Blender. Now that we're in Blender, go ahead and delete the default cube because I don't know what object you're going to be working with. This is a general guide. And we can open our multi-face cube we just exported. Now it came with this UCX. We don't need that. We do need the light. Alright, so now we have our cube object, and I'm holding middle mouse button down here to pan like this. If you're not familiar with Blender, don't worry, I'm not an expert in Blender either, but what we're doing today is pretty easy. So the first thing we're going to need to do is, well, let's assume you didn't reset the position. You can actually fix that by going to the cube, typing in transform, and making sure you zero out the location here if you didn't do it in the project itself. Either way is fine. I think it's a little easier to do it before you get it in Blender, but that's just my opinion. But we already did that, so we're good there. What we need to do is go to material, and you can see we have 1 by default, so we're going to add 5 more. So we have 1 for each side plus the top and bottom. Let's drag this down. I think we have enough. We do. Alright, now we need to hit new on each of these. And you'll see that we have 5 plus our default. Now we're going to go back to our original one. We're just going to change the base color so this is all a little easier to see when we get it back into our example. Alright, so now we need to go to edit mode, make sure we are on the faces select, and we're just going to select the faces of wherever we want these materials to be assigned to. So this world grid materials can be assigned here, then we're going to go clockwise to the right and just keep doing this. So now when we actually click on the faces, we can see what material is assigned to each face over on our right hand side of the screen. Alright, it looks like we get everything set up fine here, so we're going to go ahead and hit export, FBX, and go ahead and export it to wherever you would like. and we are going to name it something different so we don't overwrite our export example. And we only really need the mesh, we don't need anything else right now, so we can just re-export that. Now at this point, all we have to do is drag it from wherever you exported it to back into our project, import it, and we have a cube with our default colors set up. As you can see, they're all different base colors. And if we actually wanted to edit these materials, we can do that here. So let's say we want the yellow to be some type of glass. We can do that, which is pretty cool. Because if we can see that the bottom is green, but then we kind of have this transparent effect on top. Overall, this is useful for adding faces to whatever object you want. Well, we're not really adding faces, we're assigning different materials to faces, and this is kind of the process for that. It's extremely easy once you get used to it. Now, as you saw in Blender, this was a relatively simple object. If the object you're working with has a ton of faces, it does become a little more difficult, but the process is still exactly the same. Anyways, I know it's been a while since I've made an Unreal Engine tutorial. I've been making Unity tutorials, and I'm going to get back into trying to put out a Unreal video once every day or once every 2 days as well. Please drop me a comment, a like, or subscribe. It greatly helps me out, as this channel is not monetized. And I also do have a Patreon if you're interested in that. It's just to support my channel right now, but I do greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.